Alright, so today we're on number 13, and in feminist lore, the 13 is a lucky number. So 13 video is a good video. It's not like something that's going to bring you unfortunate black cats or doom. We also love black cats, by the way. So, here's what we're going to talk about today is toxic masculinity. And I brought a couple of art pieces here for us to reflect upon. This right here, I've taught Intro to Women's Studies at the college quite a few times, and I've taught Women's Studies courses here, different levels, different kinds. One of the ones that I taught here that I was very pleased with to teach and excited was called Feminist Research. It was a master's level course, and I taught it 10 times, 15 times. So, this right here, mansplainer, that was one of the inspirations for this. And we have often these talking heads who tell us, for example, no, you can't have an abortion. No, you can't have birth control. No, we don't believe you were actually sexually assaulted. Yes, you should have just kept your knees together, even though there were 5 of them. Yes, your husband loves you, even though he beats you up. You should just pray harder. All of the different ways that mansplaining has happened for a few thousand years, and in a few thousand ways, perhaps every aspect of our life has been shaped in some way by one of these mansplainers. My tank that I've put here is what it can feel like. You've got a tank coming at you. You've got all these heads, these talking heads. You've got this constant feeling of you need to jump puddles and jump bridges and jump through hoops. And it's always their headlines. They get to shape how the boundaries of conversations take place. And you'll see this is me. I don't know if you can get the camera in there close enough. Is that close enough? Can you see me running with my little pigtails and my helmet and I'm trying to escape patriarchy? And actually I wanted to share with you something beautiful. I don't know if you can see that. But this is my custom made necklace, and I feel very privileged because it says, fuck capitalism and fuck patriarchy. It's quite beautiful and it cheers me up. And sometimes if I'm at one of those meetings, I can just tuck this inside my blouse and kind of put my finger on it, and it helps soothe me so that I don't have to jump up and start screaming. So, here we are, toxic masculinity. How does that relate to social work with victims of abuse? This is me with no makeup on in the morning. This is me as someone who's been in this zone for pretty much all my life. See my little feminist symbol here? Yeah. See how intense my eyes are? I've been watching this for a long time. What do I want to say? If we had a big blackboard, I would draw something for you. But you're going to have to use your imagination. Now that you know me so well, we've been together for 12 sessions, and this is the 13th session. And you've been watching all these videos, and you've been reading the 4 books, and you're very emotionally courageous, and you're ethically bold. So, you'll be able to follow what I'm going to describe here, and you'll be with me as I describe this, using your imagination. Picture identical twins, but boy-girl. So what are those? Fraternal twins? That's called boy-girl. So we're going to draw two big lines on a blackboard. These brand new babies come into the world. Joe and Jane, brand new. Same mom, same womb, same everything. Except one baby's got a penis. That's going to shape the future of these two people. One's got the penis, one doesn't have the penis. Things happen.
All right, Freud.
All right, Freud. Well, it's beyond Freud. It's beyond Freud. It's all kinds of layers of. It's all of this. It's all of this. All these talking heads have shaped so many things. So the little boy, the little girl. Right away, we know research has shown us that many people still today will hold the little girl very, very carefully and tenderly. But with the little boy, they're likely to bounce him a little bit and say, oh, he's going to be like his dad, he's going to play football. And with the little girl, they're like, oh, look how tender she is inside. She's going to be like her mom. I can tell. We know they end up often still in the boys in a blue bedroom, the girls in a pink bedroom. The boy is given toys still to this day, and if you doubt me, go to Walmart, walk down the aisle. You will see still to this day, there's the boys' toys and the girls' toys. There's the fluffy pink stuff for the girl, the stuffy, the snuggly, the Barbie dolls, all that kind of thing. And for the boys, there's still that burden that is put upon him of trucks and guns and be tough and be strong, be solid, the Incredible Hulk, machines. It still isn't a world where both Joe and Jane, as little toddlers, are given identical socialization. They're still put on a certain path. The girl baby still in this world, parents as a collective group on planet Earth, will still be more cautious with their little girl. We know that the boundary of where the little girl will be allowed to go is more constricted. If you put a group of moms and dads with babies, toddlers, female toddlers, male toddlers, and you put them in a big beautiful park, we know that in general, with the boy, they'll let the little boy kids wander off a little bit further. So in both stories, all the adults can see the children. So I'm not suggesting that we let little boys fall off cliffs or anything. Okay, so like a big beautiful park, and you can see all the kids. You can see the kids. It's safe. Right? But what will happen with the girl, even the geographical space that will allow the girls to go. Well, like, come back, Mom, got you a sandwich. Come on back over here, sweetie. Or we wish them to be closer in terms of geographical space. The little boys, two little boys can tumble, and as long as we can still see them over there, we're more okay with that. That teaches little people on a subconscious level, again, that girls need to kind of be always cautious, always alert, always contained, and boundaries. Boys are often taught to push boundaries, to go further, to be a little bit rough and tumble. And I suggest this is not all parents. I'm just saying in general, these patterns are still happening. So what can that do on a subconscious level is girls are more taught to ask for permission, to make eye contact, and affirm, is this okay? Have I gone too far? With the boys, they still have this, the boys can go be boys. If a little boy falls on his knees, well, man up. Let him learn. Life is tough. If a little girl falls on her knees and starts crying, we're more likely to go, oh, come here, sweetie. Okay? These are still patterns that are active in the world. Maybe not in your own family, because I know students will say, well, that never happens in my family, or my sister's raising her girl to be a truck driver. I know there's many, many exceptions, but there's still patterns. And like I said, if you doubt me, go walk down the aisles at Walmart or any of the massive toy selling places, and you'll see the patterns. You'll definitely still see them. So let's say we've got Joe and Jane, and they're now 5 years old, and they're starting kindergarten or grade 1. Again, these patterns still reproduce. The boys are allowed to be a little bit more naughty or loud or difficult in general. The girls are taught to sit nice, sit quiet, to draw, to play with their dolls. The boys, if they start throwing chairs around or something, we're still more likely to go, oh, boys will be boys. Okay? By the time either of these kids is age 18, 1 in 6 boys will have been sexually abused. 1 in 3 girls will be sexually abused by the age of 18. Still to this day, about 97% of the time, if a sexual abuser has hurt a boy or a girl, it's a male. So there are males who get sexually abused by females, and I'll try and come back to that in a minute. But we know that still in general, on planet Earth, sexual abuse remains more. Perpetrators commit this who are male. And it isn't necessarily even a gay thing, because I know some people have that idea of, gay men sexually abuse boys. Well, there's also a lot of heterosexual men who will abuse little boys. It's not, there are patterns, but it isn't a guaranteed thing. if you're a gay male, you sexually abuse. Obviously not. There's millions of gay men who would never ever abuse, who are loving, good, honorable people. And there are men who are seen as heterosexual who will abuse boys.
Well, that and sexual abuse doesn't define your sexuality.
Right. That's right. Very well said. It's an issue of power. It's an issue of control. And sometimes it's just a twisted, this person was available. You know, being as blunt, and we talked earlier, we have to be able to be blunt and coarse and raw when we talk about these issues. Sometimes the story simply is a man who has been living his life as a heterosexual person. They'll say, I had a hard on, the boy was there, I fucked him. We need to be blunt. That's often how these stories unfold, right? It's about control and power and abuse. It's not about tenderness, sensuality, love, affection, eroticism. It's something distorted. So, we'll go back to Jane and Joe. So by about age, let's say age 10, both of these kids now have been socialized with certain gender expectations on them and certain expectations about who they will love and how they will love and when they will love. They've also been taught subconsciously and consciously about things they will be allowed to do and things they will not be allowed to do. Already the collective group of female Janes have been socialized that they're going to go for jobs like being a child care worker, nurse, teacher, social worker, waitress, cleaning lady, sex trade worker. All of these professions that are women-dominated professions are paid less. They're given less control over their day-to-day choices. They're still handmaiden professions. Let's say a nurse. A nurse is a very, very skilled profession, and you have to do a lot of training. And it is a profession that more and more is being financially rewarded. But it's still a handmaiden profession in that it's often subsumed to the medical profession, to male doctors in general. Because I know, again, there's tons of exceptions, but I'm trying to make a life story for you. So Joe is taught that he's going to go for professions or employments that will involve his muscles, will involve him being more in control, that will be a leader, he can be dominant, he can own his future, he can make choices so that he can be a good provider for his family. There's certain expectations on boys. By about age 10, they have internalized all of this stuff. They've also internalized all the stuff around racism. If Joe and Jane were born with white skin, they will often have a mindset already by age 10 that white dolls are better than black dolls. They already will have internalized beliefs around indigenous people most of the time. So oppressions are already starting to get processed deeply into their DNA, into their bones, into who they are, what they assume, believe about themselves and the world. So, how does this have meaning for social work with victims of abuse? Boy children are still being socialized more to be abusers. They're being socialized that when they stomp their feet and start throwing things and start yelling, the world will pay attention to them. And it'll often be seen as normal. This is what boys do. Boys punch each other in the yard when there's been a conflict. Girls are still socialized to not do that. We're socialized to be manipulative and to be disingenuous and to use distortions of power versus being direct and authentic, right?
Yeah, we utilize power structures.
Right.
And
We go and report to the teacher. We go and tell my dad's going to beat you up.
Right. Go talk to that person's best friend. Go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is still happening versus the world that we dream of. All genders will be earnest, authentic, sincere. They'll be in their own body. They'll be able to talk about what they need and want in a spontaneous, wholesome way. This is not yet the world that we live in for the most part. By age 15, often the girl, or Jane in this story, Jane has been socialized that she's going to find someone who will marry her, who will take care of her. The Prince Charming story still exists. She's more socialized to be virginal, to be subordinate. By age 15, boys have learned that they are entitled to certain things. If he's bought you a movie and dinner and he's been kind and good to you all night, you owe him at least a wet French kiss, or you owe him sex, or you owe him a chance to put his hand up your skirt.
Yeah, skewed reciprocity.
Yeah, right. That this is the exchange of access.
This is a normal give and take.
A normal give and take, access to my body in exchange for material goods. That this is still a dynamic that happens in our world. So, how does this relate to social work with victims of abuse? By this age, we see girls often subordinating their own intellect, their own powers. If they're brilliant at math, they start not being as brilliant at math because they don't want to show up the boys in the class. They don't want to be seen as a show-off or uppity or strident or a feminist or a difficult person or a bitch. Any of those kind of things. Boys who are good at math don't feel shame. They don't feel, oh, I better not let people find out that I'm good at math, right? The subconscious, not always consciously, right? Boys by age 20 have often gotten into a place where, hey, I have to own a car, I have to look this way, I have to, look like the false bravado stuff, the leather jacket, some sort of, dragon tattoo.
Tribal tattoo.
Tribal tattoo. There's a certain look that by age 20, a certain vibe that most males still on planet Earth strive towards. By age 20, many females on our planet have already, their life has been constricted. They may have 2 kids by now, they may be married by now, they've made choices which were kind of made for them, and their life is on a path that's going to be hard for them to get on a different path, a path of empowerment, self-entitlement, self-love, self-courage, to be their own unique goddess self, right? By age 20, those options are already kind of limited in our present world. So there are some things about patriarchy. Religion dovetails in with that, often a Catholic worldview, a Muslim worldview. There are some definitions of different faiths, dominant faiths on planet Earth, that reinscribe that idea that the female is a helpmate to the male, that the female has to obey and listen and conform. How does that relate for social work with victims of abuse? What this means is by the time someone's in our office, often the woman who's been beaten up by her 3rd boyfriend, and she's 22 and she has 2 kids and she's living in a dump and she only ever finished grade 8, it's going to take a while to get her to a place of empowerment. Sometimes our funders have this idea of, you'll have one session where you talk about career choices, one where you talk about effective parenting, one where you help her get an apartment. 8 sessions later, she'll suddenly be this successful CEO making 60 grand a year, and she'll have solved all her problems. No, that first 20 years of her life have already so embedded certain outcomes, patterns, resources, that it's going to be hard. It's going to take 20 years to get to a different place, right? So, the other thing that we're going to have in our office is often we don't even see the more ordinary abuses, let's say. Ordinary abuses being where a kind of nice guy, nice Joe, nice Jane with their nice little kids in their nice little house, disproportionately, both the male and the female might be working a 40-hour week, but his job rules the family. If one of the kids is sick, she takes the day off work to stay home with the kid. She's the one who, after she's made supper and done the dishes and cleaned the house and done a load of laundry, she's the one who sits with the kids and does the homework. Meanwhile, he might have been taking a course to further improve his marketable skills. He might have been in the garage fixing the car. He also has his work, but the work that he does in the world tends to be more valued and more work of permanence versus, let's say, work of, I make supper, I feed the family, I do the dishes, it's like it never happened. The next night, I make supper, I do the dishes, it's like it never happened. That kind of work that you could call that Sisyphean work, non-durable work, he fixes the car, and the car for the most part is going to be fixed for a week or a month. So males as a collective group get to have this feeling of what they do in the world is of worth and is durable and is substantive and is real. We get taught things like, I have 7 cats. Every morning I clean all the cat boxes, which is 8 cat boxes. I change the water in their dishes. I check that their food dishes are full. Every night when I come home from work, I check that their dishes are full. I check the water. I change the cat boxes. This is non-durable work. I do it. I've done it for 50 years. I'll do it probably till the day I die, and the day after, someone better damn well get into my house and do it, because the cat boxes will be dirty, right?
Yep.
It's that kind of work where you feel you don't have something real.
And that even the work that you are doing isn't valued because it's not considered work.
It's not work because it's not durable. A guy builds a shed, there's a shed. There it is.
A woman takes care of her kids, and that's, you had a kid.
Yeah, it doesn't give you a solid, objective, saleable kind of outcome. All of this has consequence for social work with victims of abuse. So let's say our 2 people here, they marry in a heterosexual way, and life goes on, life goes on. By the time they're age 65, often the consequence of all this is the man has a bunch of RRSPs, he has money in the bank, he has an established credit rating, he's been making double or even triple what his wife has been making in the paid market. He's making $100,000 a year by the time he retires. She might still only be making $30,000 a year if she's been working as a clerk at Canadian Tire or a waitress in a Denny's, right? So by the time, let's say if they divorce when they're 65, she has nothing unless the law stands up for her and defends her. He may have a maximum Canada pension plan, he has RSPs, he owns a camp, he owns a boat, he owns a car, so on. So I'm making this really simple, but and basic, rudimentary, like basic Lego colors and squares. How does this have consequence with social work with victims of abuse? Everybody knows what's going on. So let's say a wife age 40, her husband's been beating her up for 20 years, he's been beating up the kids, but she has stayed with him because he's a good enough provider. The kids have now turned 20 and they've gone off into the world. She looks at her life, she looks at her options, she looks at her resources, and she thinks, I could leave him now because the kids are gone. And she thinks, if I leave him now, I'm doomed to go work at Tim Hortons for the rest of my life for minimum wage. I don't really have assets or resources that are marketable. I'm not going to find another guy because I'm 40. I may not feel beautiful, and in our world that as you get older as a woman, you're worth less as a sexual object, a sexual being, a baby maker, all those main jobs for women. So here's the consequence. She may stay with a man she doesn't like, she doesn't love, she may even despise and loathe him, but she remains with him even though he treats her bad, even though he has affairs, even though he doesn't mean much to her, but she stays with him because in our materialized world she feels I'm trapped. So this is the kind of client you might have where you want to talk to her about, the law says you are entitled to half the assets, half of his pension. That might be good news to her. You want to talk to her about getting legal aid. You want to talk to her about maybe putting her in a shelter if that will help her, if that's what she wishes, until we resolve this. So she might have a difficult year, and then once it's worked through the law and so on, she might be okay. She might be able to harvest the 20 years of being in that marriage and keep herself safe. We also know that many times the man who is abusing, the most dangerous time for a woman is
at home alone with him.
When she tries to leave.
Oh.
Even if he doesn't, alone at home with him too, but also the most dangerous time, let's say he's never actually almost killed her. in that
What a
20 years. Yeah, I know. So she's had 20 years of abuse, right? But he's never actually, let's say, stabbed her, or he's never taken the brakes off her car, or any of those kind of things. This is the time where he might. This is the time when he thinks she's going to leave him. And it may not even be because he's, oh my God, I love her so much, I can't be with her, I can't bear the thought of not being with her. He may have in his mind, she is my object. I own her.
I need to reestablish dominance.
Dominance and control. So that same way when the little boy was 4 or 5 years old and he dominated and controlled his trucks, his objects, his world, and everybody let him get away with his tantrums because boys will be boys. All his life he's been boss. He's been in control. He gets to set the limits of any discussion. He gets to tell everybody how the rules of the game are going to go. His 40-year-old wife, he may not want to be stigmatized in the community. He may not want the thought of being pussy whipped. He may not want his friends and his colleagues to see that his wife left him. And this might be the time where we need to be talking with her about how are we going to keep you safe. And she may say, well, he's never, he's beaten me up, or he threw me down a flight of stairs, or once he threw a pot of hot spaghetti at me, or one time he almost punched me in the face, but then he hit the wall. This might be the time where things are going to go over the top. We want to keep her safe. We want to have a safety plan. We want to ask her and believe her. Everything she says, which may seem sometimes at first like crazy talk. She may even think she herself is crazy. I worked with someone once. I was talking with them about stalking. Their ex had stalked them. And when she was in relationship with him, she came to realize, she didn't realize it at the time, but she came to realize he would do things like take her keys. She comes home from work and she puts her keys here. In retrospect, she realized he would take her keys and put them in the fridge. And she was like, I can't find my keys. She goes looking for her keys. Eventually, he or someone else finds her keys in the fridge and he says, see how crazy you are? Good thing you've got me, baby. I take care of you. In retrospect, she realized she was not crazy. He had done things like that all the time to make her doubt her sanity, doubt her intellect, and make her feel ridiculous in front of her kids. That, at first you think that, who would do that? That doesn't make any sense. That's sometimes what perpetrators are like. It's not logical, rational, sequential. We talked about that earlier in this series, that sometimes the things that perpetrators do to us, it's its own universe of meaning. It's not sensible. You would think somebody who loves me, somebody who married me because they love me, somebody I'm devoting my life to, somebody who I'm raising kids with, somebody we've built a life together, why would he put my keys in the fridge to make me feel crazy? Because he could. Because he could. As out there as that sounds, sometimes the people who abuse us, they do it just because they can, because it makes them feel entertained. Sometimes it makes them feel powerful. It makes them feel smart. It makes us more dependent and vulnerable upon them. It makes them feel that they own us, the way we might with this cat. Told you I got my 7 cats. I'll play with my cats with a string and then I hide the string. Sometimes that's what a perpetrator does. Is we're entertainment to him. It makes them feel. They laugh when we are in pain. They laugh, and my cats aren't in pain when they can't find the string.
A little upset, but they'll get over it.
And there's lots of string in their lives. If you ever go to my house, you'll see it's toys everywhere. But that same kind of dynamic made grotesque, right? So there's a few words about the life cycle, the male, the female, how one disadvantage links into the other, the other, the other. I want to talk a little bit about physicality. I'm going to ask Carlene to punch me in the face. We're going to stand up for a second here. So imagine Carlene's my abuser. So I'm going to be looking like this. at my abuser, okay? And Carlene is gonna, like, just go and try and punch me.
I was going to like.
Okay, so try and, like, grab my hair or something like that again.
What is it? I'm going to, yeah.
Okay. So, isn't she an excellent abuser? No, she sucks at being an abuser. She sucks at it. I even gave her a template. Sit down.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So, I
don't know
want
how to abuse.
yeah, in your next reincarnation, maybe. Eh? But why did I do that? Because I want you to, in that split second, here's some things I want you to know. In general, males still are larger than us. We're still in a heterosexual kind of template world. The couples that we're talking about for the purposes of this video, the males are taller, they're wider, they're older. Women still in general are drawn to that kind of definition of what is masculinity. Masculinity is power. So we tend to be, it has become eroticized in our heterosexual dominant world that if he's taller than me, if he's bigger than me, if he's wider than me, if he's older than me, that is eroticized. Oh, he'll take care of me. He'll be my prince. He'll protect me.
He's more mature.
He's more mature. He knows the ways of the world.
He'll look after me.
He'll look after me. So that, again, whether that's subconscious or conscious, there's still a pattern around that, right? Also, this guy who just was punching me and so on, and Carlene kind of failed at it. And I love her still. I'll love her in lots of ways. Okay.
I failed at punching, and I'm okay with
You're
that.
okay with that. But in general, boys still tend to play. So if we go to life cycle again, boys tend to play hockey, football, baseball, wrestling, rugby. They play games where they use their muscles and their fists and their prowess.
And their contact.
And their contact. This is still in our world. And if you look around, I know you're all going to find exceptions, but in general, the male body has been taught efficacy. The male body has been taught, step up, punch, use your fists, be a man, right?
Assert yourself.
In general, I'm a 60-year-old woman, and I've never punched anyone. It's just never been a thing where I thought, today's the day I'm going to punch. I've never played hockey. I think I played baseball one time at an employee kind of dinner thing. I totally sucked at it, and I had flats on. That meant that when I ran to the base, I just kept going because I had no brakes, girl flats, but not running shoes. So in general, males still go and lift weights. Yes, there's lots of females and girls, and I think that's fabulous. But why do I say this? We'll hear people say, well, the statistics are men hit women, women hit men. And a lot of people say, well, out there, there's a lot of women who beat their husbands.
I took judo, but that doesn't mean I'm going to beat my boyfriend.
It doesn't mean you will, but it also means at the same time that even if I had gone and played baseball, I've been in general, again, planet Earth, okay? In general, when my husband was, when we married, 220 pounds, 6'2", he knew how to use a chainsaw, an axe, he played baseball, football, wrestling, soccer, he played all those contact games. If he had punched me square in the face one time, he would have sent me back 10 feet in another direction. If I had punched him in the face one time, even when I went like that, he probably would have known how to block my wrist and hold my wrist without me being able to.
Depending on the size difference, you might not even be able to reach his face.
Right, exactly. So the point I'm making is I'll see a lot of people right now making the case of, yeah, men hit women, women hit women, women hit men. It's all the same, whatever. We're done now. No. Still, there's a difference. When a man hits a woman, in general, it has a whole other thing. I look away. Okay? If my husband Ken had ever punched me, I'd have looked away in that split second. In the split second, if I went to punch him, he would have blocked my wrist. Because he's been socialized to not look away.
And stand his ground.
And stand his ground. That's right. There's even in America, there's laws around that A man is entitled to stand his ground. If he's in his yard and someone comes in his yard and he kills them, in America there's even states that have that. It's called, I'm pretty sure, stand your ground law. That he's entitled to kill them because they're in his yard. He's supposed to stand his ground. A real man stands his ground, right? So, I wish to share that. Again, how does that have consequence? That has consequence going back to our talk about interdisciplinarity. So the police come and they say, the husband and wife, they say to the husband, what happened here? The neighbors called the police. The husband says, she punched me, so I punched her back. She's got a face like this. She punched him, but she never connected. So theoretically, cops could go, oh, it's just a spousal thing. She punched him, he punched her. There's nothing to see here. No, there's something to see here. Also, if he punches her, she knows that if she leaves, she's got no money, she has no car, she might not have a driver's license, she doesn't have a professional marketable skill. He knows if he wants, he can walk out the door and he's got a car, a driver's license, money, a job. Maybe in some families still, the husband has the Visa and the MasterCard and the wife asks him, can I take the MasterCard and go buy groceries? These abusive families, the male often has used economics as a violence. He's used emotional control. He's used verbal control. He's sexually abused her. He's threatened the kids. He said, if you ever leave me, bitch, I'll take it out on the kids. I'll take it out on your mother.
He's given implicit threats.
He's given implicit threats. Like he's taken off his wedding ring if she doesn't do what he says. There's a lot of ways that implicitly through that whole life cycle, boys have become men who know how to use control. We've got girls and women who've used manipulation where we may have, skimmed $5 off every grocery bill to have a little stash in a cookie jar somewhere in case we want to run away someday. But still, in general, the power tends to still be with males. We know that. It's a fact. If you doubt me, go and look at Statistics Canada and look at solo women, what kind of incomes they earn in general. Look at male solo. Often after a divorce, a year after a divorce, the male's income has gone up and the female's income has tanked. Right? So if we take a classic story, at age 40 they divorce, she gets half the assets and resources of the cumulative marriage. But a year or two later, he's still earning $100,000 a year. He's still earning $80,000 a year. She's now working part-time at Canadian Tire and part-time at Tim Hortons. Minimum wage, no benefits. That's still very often because she was doing the child care for the 20 years of the marriage and the cooking and the cleaning. Also, before that, she wasn't even socialized to make money her number one thing. She was being socialized, as we said, that she would be a clerk at Sears because someday she's going to marry someone who'll take care of her.
Yeah.
Right?
And then she's going to need to be able to stay at home with the kids.
Right. Or she socialized herself to be in professions like social work, where she still is making, $30,000 a year and oftentimes not with benefits. Right? That's part of why men don't go into professions like social work, that they want to make real money, like by being a trucker.
Being a welder.
Being a welder, being an engineer. So even within blue-collar work, women's blue-collar work tends to give you less.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually cycle all the way back to, I made a comment about doctors. Yes, right now there's as many women going into being professional doctors or lawyers. But double check your research. Go and check it. What you're going to find out is even the women who go into law or who go into medicine, be a doctor, there's still a divide within it. Women will go into family law, men will go into corporate law. Not all, obviously, but a pattern. If you go 10 years or 20 years into their career, the women are doing a lot of pro bono work. They're doing family law in ways that aren't making them rich. And men will be charging for their time differently, like even if they're both family lawyers.
Yeah,
right?
even doing the same thing.
The same
There's
thing, there'll be a difference. Having been in this profession now, social work for a long time, I'll tell you, I see graduates. There'll be 2 or 3 men in the class, and if you don't believe me, go and do your research. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. I dare you. Bring it. Bring it. I'm waiting for you. That what you'll have is the males graduate with their BSW, the females graduate with their BSW, 27 women in the class, 2 or 3 men, and if I see them 10 years later, the men are more likely to be executive directors and making twice the money. The women might still be in frontline service. They have the same degree, but the men shoot to the top. In our school of social work, which is almost all female professors, we've had, to my understanding, in general, let's say there's 8 or 9 female faculty members. There's 1, 2, or 3 male faculty members. The male faculty members, there's been only, to my knowledge, in our 25 years of history as a program, there's been 3 full professors, which is the top of the game, 3 full professors, they all were male. In this school of social work. Right now, right here. So, even at that level, that's how it works out, right? And of course, they're more likely to be white males, they're more likely to be heterosexual males, right? That kind of thing. And I give you that story not to pout and rage, although I have my moments, we all do. But there are patterns. We're never an expert on any individual woman's story of abuse. We're never an expert on any incest or rape survivor. Any individual, we're never an expert. But the patterns I'm sharing with you about social work with victims of abuse, these patterns still exist. They have meaning, they have consequence, and we have to be on alert to them to both inform our clients and raise their consciousness and affirm our clients. And then in terms of problem solving and strategizing, we need to be aware of all that. If they've been married for 20 years, the husband may have said to her, if you ever leave me, bitch, you leave with nothing. I keep the kids and you leave with nothing, bitch. He may have said that to her many times. She may have come to believe that. We're there to enlighten them that, hey, the law is you get half of all of his assets.
That, or he may have had the forethought to make her sign a prenup.
Or that's a thing. And sometimes in these stories, the husband may have been hiding assets for the last couple of years. He sold his boat to his brother last year for $1. He sold the camp to his cousin for $5,000. So by the time the divorce happens, he's already kind of sheltered some of his assets, and she's not aware of it. But we can help make a case with her. He knew what he was doing. This was premeditated. That was another type of abuse. Okay? So, social work with victims of abuse, looking at the whole life cycle, looking at how economic activities have meaning and have consequence for the day-to-day for our clients. And part of what you want to be doing is, the mainstream world says, if he really was abusing her, she would have left a long time ago. Why doesn't she leave him? If he really was hitting her, she would have left. If it's true that he's been hitting her for 20 years, she must like it. Why does she stay? She must like it. No, she's terrified that she won't have a roof over her head, or her love for her kids has become the dominant force for her beyond her fear and rage and disgust with her husband. So she's been erasing her own needs and wishes and safety so that the kids could get a good education, or the kids love their dad, or I don't want to end up with nothing and be homeless, so I stay with him because he only beats me up once a month, right? So talk to her about that pattern. Talk to her about how we're going to still help her to have a roof over her head. And also talk to her that this stuff of letting the kids see this stuff, that's not good for them. That's terrible for them. Many times the boy grows up to be an abuser himself. The girl grows up to tolerate being abused because she's witnessed that at home. The other thing is emotional abuse. sometimes people say, well, it's just emotional abuse. He yells at her, he screams at her, he calls her a whore, calls her a pig, all stuff. It doesn't really matter that much. This matters in terms of the kids and self-esteem, the kids and well-being, the kids and their respect and love for their own mom. They can become contemptuous of mom who lets herself be abused emotionally. She's not letting herself be abused. We want to reframe that. But these are, again, some of the patterns. There's many, many, many things we could say about these patterns, but for this one, this video, I wanted to talk just about toxic masculinity, all of these things. When we look at the talking heads of men, right? Mm-hmm. Those disciplines, those old disciplines, let's say the Catholic Church, the Imam who puts in old ideas of what it means to be a Muslim man, the idea of the professional world, the work world, economics, history, all of the different talking heads, the cop who says, well, if she didn't like it, she would leave, right? He's been socialized to have old patriarchal toxic beliefs about masculinity and femininity and identity and well-being and our rights. All of us have the right from the time we're born till the time we die of natural causes to have a safe life. No one has the right to abuse anyone else, economically, emotionally, physically, sexually, period, full stop, done. So, thank you for listening to this video, and thank you for signing up for Social Work with Victims of Abuse.